there's no place like, there's no place like.
So tired. I needed to do my Duolingo, and then I got sucked into the social media wormhole. Today is Dorothy Must Die by Danielle Page, and this is a book that I have had on my TBR for ages, and it wasn't bad. I thought it was a little long. I thought it tackled a lot. In any book, there basically is a 3-act structure, and I felt like she had more than 3 acts. My biggest fear of this series is that I'm gonna like the first book and the rest are gonna let me down. So I'm wary about finishing it, but I have to finish it, even though, you know me, I did my research. I kind of know how things are gonna end. And I've seen mixed reviews. I feel like the reviewers are on very different ends of the age and maturity spectrum, so I don't really know which one I'm gonna side with. We'll figure it out when I get there. But I'm worried that this series is going to be like a lot of the other fairy tale retellings that I've read. A.G. Howard's Splintered. Liked the first one. I did not like the rest. The Looking Glass Wars by Frank Bedore, where I liked the first one and I did not care for the rest. Wendy Darling series by Colleen Oakes. I actually like that entire series. There were some books I liked more than others, but in terms of the grand scheme of things, it was a good trilogy. All of that to say, I'm a little worried as to what is to come with this Dorothy Must Die series. If you haven't figured it out, Dorothy Must Die is a Wizard of Oz retelling, and what I liked about it was its grit. It's almost a parody of itself because the main character, Amy Gumm, is this outcast from Kansas. She's like a whole Wizard of Oz thing, totally not true. If only it were, kind of. She is an outcast. People pick on her at school, particularly this one girl named Madison who I think is real rich, and you're picking on Amy for being trailer park trash when you are pregnant at the age of 17. Like, no offense to people who are young mothers, but the way she's portrayed, not real classy. Her father has left them and started this new family. Her mother, because of that, and then she had some kind of accident, is now addicted to drugs and alcohol, is not a very good mother. She's an absentee mother. Amy, we open up with her getting into a fight with Madison. Madison is the golden girl, and she ends up getting Amy expelled. Amy comes home to find that her mother is finally got herself out of her stupor, only to dress up to go to the bar for a tornado party because this massive tornado is supposed to come through the heart of their town. Amy's like, no, that doesn't happen. Like, that's just stuff you see on TV. It happened. Her trailer, just like with Wizard of Oz, lifted up and she's brought to Oz, but it is not the Oz we know. This Oz is very depressing. She quickly encounters resistance. Her trailer lands like on the precipice of a chasm. She makes it out just in time with the help of this mysterious young man, Pete. Pete helps her out, gives her ominous warnings, but she's like, okay, gotta get to the Emerald City. He disappears on her. He's like, oh, see you, gotta go. And she's like, there's something weird about this guy. Obviously so, because he throws himself into this deep, dark chasm of which you cannot see the bottom. So she's on her way, and I think she's in Munchkin Land. She happens upon this town, deserted, and it's really dirty. The only thing that is clean is a statue of Dorothy. She meets a munchkin named Indigo. My issue with Indigo is I've expected more from her as a character, but I'll get to that in a minute. So Indigo gives her kind of an introduction to Oz. How do I really explain it? Indigo gives her first taste of what the real Oz is like, where it's not a great place to be, and it's because Dorothy, so if you've read The Wizard of Oz, which this series made me realize I need to read The Wizard of Oz, the entire series, because it plucks a lot of obscure characters, a lot of characters that we're not necessarily familiar with. She is like, Dorothy came back, which if you've read the Wizard of Oz series, you know she does come back. But she comes back to an extent that we're not necessarily familiar with if you haven't read the whole series, or like me, have read some of them, but don't really know the whole story. The thing about Dorothy is, the Dorothy from the story is the real Dorothy, but she's not the real Dorothy, because she had gotten a taste of magic and then she became consumed by it. She couldn't get enough of it. So she takes over Oz and she's mining it for its magic. So she has gone bad. Glinda has gone bad. The Tin Woodman, the Cowardly Lion, Toto, and the Scarecrow, they've all gone bad. And her companions are essentially corrupted by those things that they had wanted most. We are in Munchkin Land, and as I said, this town is completely deserted. Amy witnesses Glinda forcing these Munchkin children to continue working, and she realizes there's something wrong with Glinda. Indigo lets her know, oh, well, she's wearing this thing called a perma-smile, and I don't know if it's kind of like a surgically permanent perma-smile, or if she uses the perma-smile goop so that she always has a perma-smile. In any case, Glinda's kind of scary in more ways than one. Indigo's like, you need to get out of here. She helps Dorothy escape Glinda, and now they're on their way to the Emerald City, where they encounter a formerly winged monkey named Ollie. Ollie is being punished for sass, and so he has been hung. I can't remember if it's upside down, but he's hung up on a pole, and Amy rescues him against Indigo's warnings, because there's a sign that says, don't mess with this guy, under penalty of death, essentially. Amy is too compassionate. She unties him, and this is where we learn that he had actually taken his own wings off, because the winged monkeys are susceptible to Dorothy and to her magic and to being enslaved by her because of their wings. So he is now part of the wingless ones, but he had been trying to rescue his family. He was trying to do something. Dorothy got upset with him. I think he spoke back. He did something, obviously, because he's sassy, and now he's being punished. They end up in an orchard, and this is where I get a little confused. She picks an apple. We learn that this orchard used to be a talking orchard, but because the talking of the trees got in the way of the enjoyment of the apples, they are no longer allowed to talk. I guess it's also illegal to pick apples from these trees, which I don't understand. How can you enjoy the orchard in silence if you can't eat the apples? But some form or fashion, the Tin Woodman shows up. Ollie escapes, and so I think they're ambushed because she rescued Ollie, but I'm like, was it triggered because of the apples, or did they just figure out where she was? He comes after Indigo, and he's like, why didn't you stop her? Indigo's like, I tried to stop her. I told her she shouldn't. Amy is trying to then come to Indigo's aid and say, she did, she tried. Indigo is still punished because she was a traitor one way or another. She was either a traitor to Dorothy by letting Amy rescue Ollie, or she was a traitor to Amy by trying to side with Dorothy. She can't have both ways. He has Indigo killed. And this is the point where, we're like maybe 10 chapters in. This was a long book. This book had like 50 chapters. And Indigo dies. This is when I expected more from Indigo. I thought she's going to be a weightier character. I thought she was going to play more into the novel. It's not that I have a problem with her dying. I think it's kind of ingenious. I'm ready for books where the unexpected happens, where characters that we don't want to die. But I was like, okay, so what purpose did she serve? She didn't really give us that much for what we're sort of led to believe she'll be. Ollie escapes. Indigo dies. Amy is taken to the palace. She is taken to meet Dorothy, who she is scantily clad. She is kind of everything you'd expect and more, but also not what you'd expect at all and less. So it's like her outfit is cooler, but there's not much of it. Dorothy's pretty scanty, let's put it that way. And she is talking to Amy, trying to figure out who Amy is. And Amy, in trying to butter Dorothy up, is saying, well, I'm nothing like you. I could never be like you. And Dorothy, she might not like to wear clothes, but she's not stupid. She's like, what do you mean? And this is when Amy reveals she's also from Kansas. And this infuriates Dorothy because only she can be from Kansas. Only she can be brought to Oz by a tornado. And she throws Amy into a cell. And when Amy's in the cell, she notices the ravens or the crows outside that have been enhanced by the scarecrow's tinkerings. While she is waiting, she is also approached by Pete, who has somehow gotten a key and comes to see her. He tells her she can't leave because the cell has magic attached to it and somebody has to be in the cell. So as soon as she leaves, they'll know she's gone. But he's like, people can go crazy in here, so I wanted you to have somebody to talk to. Which, I don't know. I don't really know what this whole purpose is serving, except that you get the idea that maybe it's Pete who then perhaps alerts the Order of the Wicked to Amy's whereabouts. As the Tin Man and his cronies are coming in, the Tin Man is a grotesque version of who you think he is, just like the Scarecrow. This figure appears in Amy's cell. It turns out to be Mombi. And if you know Return to Oz, which was a movie, Mombi is the bad guy who changed her face. Like, she would cut off people's heads so she could use them. Mombi is like, you gotta come with me, but you also have to agree to be part of our order. Amy eventually does agree. It takes her long enough, though, that the Tin Woodman and his cronies open the door, so they have to fight them. When she does agree, she is transported back to the hideout of the Order of the Wicked. And Mombi is a wicked witch. There's also Gert, who was the good witch of the North, but in Oz at this moment, good is bad and bad is good. So in order to essentially defeat Dorothy, Gert is a wicked witch. And then there is Glinda's twin sister Glamora, whom Glinda had defaced. She had scarred, she carved out part of her face because she's evil too, and she didn't really want to share a face with somebody else. So this is the order, and then there's a guy named Knox who's about Amy's age, and they are going to teach her how to defeat Dorothy. This is another point in the novel where I'm like, are we almost at the midpoint? It feels like we should be, but we're not. This was a long book. And I felt like we had all these big moments. We had all these segments that weren't quite developed. I liked the book, but at the same time, I felt like it was underdeveloped in certain respects. While she is in these caverns, she's learning to fight, to use magic, etiquette. I think that was it. At some point, some people from Gillikin country, so this is where their hideout is, because there's something about the mountains that they shift and they change, so it's hard to traverse them. And this is what has kept Gillikin country safe, but the lion has attacked a village, so these girls come to the hideout. They're both maimed in some way. One is a former subject of the Scarecrow, was intended to be part of the Tin Man's army. And then the other one, maybe she was like a unicorn of some sort. She was horned. And because of that, she was valuable. I don't remember if she had her horn cut off, if Dorothy had the horn cut off. In any case, they are allies of the Order of the Wicked. But the one girl, I cannot remember her name. I'm just going to call her Melinda. It's close enough. I don't know if I'm supposed to like her or not. I was never really given any reason as to why she needs to be so nasty, but she's a really good fighter. This then helps Amy improve her fighting. But there comes a point where they decide that they're gonna go help the Gillikins. The lion has struck again. Amy and Knox find him first, and their instruction is do not approach without us. They send word, and they're fighting, and they're kind of losing. Gert shows up. She saves them by draining the lion of his strength, because he feeds off of their fear, which gives him strength. She is apparently the most powerful of all the witches, even though Mombi is the leader. But she drains him of his strength. However, this is too much for her to handle. And Mombi is detained elsewhere, so she is unable to arrive and heal Gert before Gert dies. And again, it's one of those moments where I like that Gert died, but I didn't have enough of Gert to feel like it was time for her to die. So all of this moves the Order's plans up, and their plan is to have Amy imitate one of the servants at the palace, get in Dorothy's good graces, and then figure out how she can kill her. And she will have a contact in the palace. She will have a minder, somebody who's watching her. We think it's Pete for most of this. So she gets there, and she not inhabits the girl. So the girl's name is Astrid. Mombi takes part of some of Astrid's hair and has Amy consume it. So Amy embodies Astrid, but she's not Astrid. She has some of Astrid's knowledge, but not enough of Astrid's knowledge. So when she first gets there, she's like, what am I supposed to do? Her bell rings, and she knows enough to play around with it and to realize, like, if she follows it, it'll show her where she needs to go, because they're not allowed to use magic in the palace. But Dorothy's demands and expectations are so high that they low-key use magic in order to make sure that the palace is clean to sufficient measure, which it doesn't seem like they use magic at all, because Dorothy or Amy's like, oh, I wish we could use magic, and nobody's like, yeah, well, you can to this respect. But she follows the bell to the Scarecrow's quarters, and the Scarecrow is like, why didn't you get here sooner? And she says, because I can't use magic to transport myself here. And he's like, well, you can when I'm involved. So I thought this was funny, because now Amy is like, oh my gosh, like, are they in a relationship? Is there something I'm expected to do? Like, am I something special, or is he supposed to be something special to me? To me, as the reader, I'm reading it as, well, he's the Scarecrow, like, he's a big deal, so you can make exceptions for him and his needs. So what the Scarecrow wants is for her to inject brains into his brains. This is another one of those moments where it's obviously an expectation. It's something that Astrid has done before, but Amy has no knowledge of it. So it's a good moment for us to be given information, because Amy doesn't already know this information. But at the same time, it was kind of awkward and stilted, because she's like, what am I supposed to do? And the whole point is, don't give yourself away. All of this, I thought, I disagreed with the way that Paige went about it. But it becomes clear that she is supposed to inject him with something that's in the syringe. He reveals that he drained other people's brains in order to sharpen himself, which it's just, I really liked the way that Paige twisted these characters. They are who we know, but they're not. So he's smart, or he has his brains, but he wants to be smarter. Like, you get this impression that he needs to be smarter. So he might be smart enough with the brains he already has, but he wants to enhance it. Or is perhaps the brains he has aren't that great. So he does need to inject himself with other people's intelligence in order to be what he needs to be. And he is apparently working on some machine. I don't quite know what this machine is supposed to do, but it's supposed to be this big deal. She does what she needs to do, and then she kind of goes about her daily business. She meets all of the other servant girls. She meets Jalaiah, who's the head of all the serving maids. And again, I was like, so when her first meal, she's eating, and everything is very robotic. Everything is very in sync. And so the fact that she reaches for food, which is out of sync with what the others are doing, this all felt, again, kind of confusing and stilted for me. But the girls are like, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're eating that. Like, you don't like that kind of food, because I guess Astrid is a vegetarian or something. And Amy's like, whoops. I'm just really surprised that she doesn't blow her cover. The way that they're all supposed to be like mechanic, and they're all, I guess, brainwashed into, we love Dorothy, we're always smiling. Like, if you say anything against Dorothy, something's wrong. And there's a lot that was unprepared for and underdeveloped and doesn't make sense to me. Like, why would she be reaching for food when nobody else is reaching for food, when everything is synchronized? In any case, she does work her way into Dorothy's presence. Again, I thought like it both took forever and didn't take long enough, because the lion, I don't really know again what kind of connotation this is supposed to have. I don't know really what it's supposed to mean, but the second in command, Hannah, he apparently couldn't control his appetite and attacked her. I don't know if there's supposed to be like a euphemism in there, or if it's the whole like he really just lost control and attacked her. But Jalaiah says, oh, you can be the second in command. Come with me to Dorothy's quarters while we tend to her. But the one thing you cannot do is touch her shoes. And wouldn't you know it, like the first thing that happens when she's there, she's mesmerized by these shoes. And nobody notices. Like, she's legit gonna come after these shoes. And I think they're on Dorothy's feet. Nobody notices. Eventually, Jalaiah is like, excuse you, but anyways, so she is tasked with brushing Dorothy's hair, and it has to be exactly 1,000 strokes. Otherwise, bad things will happen. While she's brushing her hair, she gets a little bit distracted, and she almost nicks Dorothy's ear with the hairbrush. Dorothy doesn't notice, but Jalaiah does. And Jalaiah is giving Dorothy a manicure. This distracts Jalaiah to the extent that a small bit of nail polish drops onto the floor, and Dorothy has a conniption over it. She then notices a mouse, freaks out, and Amy is scared because she'd gotten her knife out. She was going to stab Dorothy, which she, I guess, couldn't decide whether she was or wasn't going to do it, whether she should or shouldn't. She misses her chance, but Dorothy sees this mouse and freaks out. Amy is freaking out because she's like, oh my gosh, now she's caught me. In her anger over the spilled nail polish, she has Jalaiah go and try to capture the mouse. Jalaiah can't. Dorothy uses her magic to find the mouse, but then she has Jalaiah kill the mouse and then like carry it around in her pocket for the next couple days. Amy is like immediately demoted, and I'm like, it's all happening really fast, but there's still nothing happening at all. I was like, okay, was it Jalaiah who who had Amy demoted, or was it Dorothy who had Amy demoted? Like, really, who was behind it? Because Dorothy didn't seem to care. Like, she didn't seem to notice any problem with Amy. We re-encounter Ollie. The Scarecrow has gone into his lab to continue working on his machine. Amy encounters Ollie trying to break into Scarecrow's quarters. He's trying to find his sister. She convinces him to let her do it because there's no way that anybody's gonna buy his getup as a serving maid. She has an encounter with the wizard, who is like, the enemy of my enemy is my friend. Like, he is friends with Dorothy, but she doesn't actually trust him. But she encounters him because she had eavesdropped on Dorothy's conversation. She learns that Dorothy has this magic portrait. When she goes to use this portrait, he finds her and kind of gives her like mixed signals, cryptic messages. But she goes back to this portrait to try to find Maud. It shows her where Maud is. She goes into the secret lair and rescues Maud. But because of this puts everybody on high alert. And all of the serving maids are going to be questioned. And obviously, Amy/Astrid is the main suspect of sorts. I don't know why. I have no clue why she would stand out over anybody else. But Jalaiah lines them all up for a pre-inspection, wipes away something that turns out to be blood. Amy is like, well, obviously Jalaiah knows something and she's trying to help me. Jalaiah is like, Amy, you need to go back to your room because you're really messy and you need to make sure that your room is clean. While she's in her room, she finds that it's been destroyed and she's super sad because she thinks that her pet rat has been killed. And her pet rat is actually her mother's pet rat, Star. This rat has no purpose whatsoever. And I was like, why is this rat here? I really didn't see the purpose, because when Amy got caught by Tid Woodman in the first place, she gave the rat to Pete when he came to visit her in her cell. So the rat, like, for a chunk of the story is not even there. Eventually, the rat reveals himself or herself and says, oh yeah, like basically I hid out in a crack in the wall, but you need to follow me. So she follows the rat and the rat shows her a secret path to the garden where Amy meets up with Pete. I honestly don't remember what this conversation was about, but because she has Star back, she's reinvigorated. She does feel a little bit abandoned by the Order because nobody is coming to her aid when she needs them. Like, she's kind of in limbo. She doesn't really know what she's supposed to be doing. So we get to the climax of this book, which is this ball, which apparently Dorothy is throwing just because she feels like it. Well, actually, no, I missed something. Jalaiah turns out to be part of the Order, and she is the one who has been watching over Amy. You never would have known. It really didn't matter. But because of all these things that Amy had done to rescue Maud, Jalaiah somehow takes the fall. I don't know why Amy/Astrid is their main suspect, but she is. Jalaiah, in order to protect Amy, takes the fall. She is going to be punished. The lion comes after her and bites off her arm. Instead of killing her, though, the Scarecrow is like, oh, give her to me. I think I can do something with her. He then turns her into half machine. So now we're at this ball and we're seeing her and we're like, it's kind of disturbing, but that's kind of the beauty of this book, is it's disturbing. Dorothy is dancing with a Tin Woodman who is in love with her. He rips her dress. She freaks out. Amy is like, oh, let me help you. Like, let's go get you changed. At this point, I guess the Order is somehow infiltrating because Nox is there. The Order is infiltrated. They have made it so that you can't use magic within the palace. And I guess this is affecting Amy's disguise. She confronts Dorothy. Dorothy's magic doesn't work, but Toto, as Amy is about to attack Dorothy, Toto attacks Amy. Dorothy gets away. Amy chases her to a tower. She's cornered Dorothy, but then the Tin Woodman corners Amy, and what Amy does is like, well, we'll just die together. She tackles Dorothy, they fall off of the tower. She's resigned to death, but Dorothy is clicking those heels together. Somehow, she is able to use these shoes to escape. Now Amy's like, well, there we go. Maybe I can use my magic and like float myself to safety. What it turns out is the wingless ones who have devised a way to fly, they rescue her. Oh, God, I mean, this book was just really, really long. I thought it would have been great to kind of end here. But somehow Amy meets up with the wizard, who apparently is on the side of the wingless ones, but he used to be allied with the Order, but there is a falling out, so he is, but he isn't. He realizes that Glinda knows where they are because of the magic portrait. I don't know how. Glinda sends the Tin Woodman, and this is when Amy realizes that Glinda can't or won't fight her own battles. The wizard has revealed to Amy that the only way to destroy Dorothy is to kill her companions. She has to get the companions out of the way, which means she, I guess, has to take back the gifts that had been bestowed in the Wizard of Oz. She is able to overpower the Tin Woodman, which I had to rewind this moment because I was like, wait a minute, how did we get here? I actually had to rewind a couple of times because I was like, how did we get here? But she overpowers him. She takes his heart out. Glinda shows up and she's like, why, thank you, I will take that. And all the while, nobody knows where Dorothy is. Amy is able to escape from Glinda. Then Pete is also here. It is revealed that Pete is actually Ozma. Good cliffhanger, but there's a lot going on right now, and there were quite a few times that we could have already stopped. I think it would have been better if we had started the next book with this whole like killing the Tin Woodman thing. I liked the book more than I thought, but there was also a lot about this book that dragged it down, made it weighty, made it slow. There, as I said, many times where I couldn't figure out how we got from point A to point B. A lot of times that things happened really quickly and they needed more development, that I was like, why does this matter? Or it could have mattered more. And it's because she tried to do so much. I think if she pared it down a little bit, she would have been more successful. I loved the twist on The Wizard of Oz. There we go. Please let me know if there's anything else you want to know, because this book was pretty intricate. I'll see you next time. Have a great day.